Turn heads and bring the hype with a custom hype chain from Lotwin. Perfect for youth sports, fantasy football, or just flexing your pride. Go to Lotwin.com, use the promo code TCCPOD for 10% off your order. That's Lotwin.com, promo code TCCPOD for 10% off. Get your custom hype chain and get hype with Lotwin. What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for January 20th, 2026. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Tuesday edition of the podcast. It is Tuesday, time for a little motivation / positivity, brought to you by the Clashing Conferences Sports Fan Network. Go to clashingconferences.com to see how you can join, what they have to offer, and always remember that we here at This Day in Philly Sports History are proud members of the Clashing Conferences Sports Fan Network. All right, we're going back to our old pal Mark Manson today, the author of The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. And I say this all the time, but I do enjoy his weekly newsletter. But this week, it talked about actions and values, and essentially said actions are your values made real. You can talk the talk, but at the end of the day, your actions will never lie. And I really like this because to me, the bottom line is you can talk all you want, but it's what you do that counts. And so essentially, do your actions match what you say? Because you can say you value this, you value that, but when push comes to shove, are you willing to sacrifice time, comfort, convenience, or even ego for those values? For example, I value my family, but you're never home. You value your health, but you don't do anything healthy. You don't exercise, you eat crap, whatever. The uncomfortable truth here is that your calendar and your habits are more honest than what you say. So essentially, what you do is more important than what you say. And if there's a disconnect, that's where some of the things need to come in. So as we're going into the new year here, take an inventory. Is what you're doing matching what you're saying? Show up when it's easier not to show up. Do the right thing even when no one is looking. Stay consistent when your motivation fades. Essentially, that's your identity. That's where you can start to align things. Push yourself. If it's cold today, you get up, you don't want to work out, force yourself to do it. Or you're tired, or this or that, or people are going out for happy hour from work. You told your kids you would go to their game. Go to the kids' game. That's how you start to align everything. And ask yourself and be honest about this. If someone were to judge you on your values and not your actions, or I'm sorry, I mixed that up. If someone were to judge your values based on your actions, what would they say matters to you the most? And if it's not the answer you want, you can make the change. You can always change that narrative. So you're essentially one choice away from changing the story. And that's from Mark Manson. That is today's Tuesday Motivation Positivity. Your actions are your values made real. You can talk the talk, but at the end of the day, your actions never lie. So are you aligned with what you're saying? Do your actions match your words? That is brought to you, as always, by the Clashing Conferences Sports Fan Network. Go to clashingconferences.com to see how you can get involved today. But like I said, I really like that one. It's a good reminder sometimes to just do the right thing all the time. And yes, it is definitely difficult, but do what is more important and do what you say you're going to do. All right. Lots of news from yesterday about the Eagles. So apparently they interviewed former Tampa Bay offensive coordinator Josh Grizzard. They've also interviewed Jim Bob Cooter, Mike Kafka, and Zach Robinson. They've reached out about Bobby Slowick. Obviously, they reached out to Mike McDaniel. I know they're looking at Brian Dable. So they're doing their due diligence, which is good. But for somebody like Grizzard, I think he only has like a year or two of play calling. I need somebody who has a lot of experience for me to do this. So we'll see what happens. But I also wonder how Sean McDermott getting fired and that opening up in Buffalo is going to impact some of these candidates. Like I could see a Mike McDaniel even getting the job in Buffalo, but possibly even the OC. Maybe Brian Dable goes back to Buffalo to reunite with Josh Allen. So we'll see what happens. And I do think, I still think a lot of people out there are mixed on this. I think the Eagles' job is an attractive job. It might not be as good as some of the other ones, but I think with the talent and with what they have going on, and truthfully, the organization itself and their history of allowing these experienced guys to come in and move on to head coaching jobs, I think it's far from being a terrible job. I would much rather go here than, and I talked about this on the Brotherly Birds breakdown with Kyle, I would even think with what they have, it's more attractive than a Tampa Bay job. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. But kudos to the Eagles, I guess, for doing their due diligence. Also, I saw yesterday that I believe it's Bleeding Green Nation. A.J. Brown, speaking of those weapons, asked for a trade multiple times last year and was denied. And we'll see what happens. Apparently, way back even into week 3, he asked for a trade. But I don't know. I think it has to be the right package. And I don't think Howie's going to do anything that is going to harm the team and put them in a difficult position. So, again, we'll see what happens. But that's worth monitoring because of that dead cap hit. And I don't know the ins and outs of the salary cap. Like if they trade, would that, I don't know, would the new team, like if they renegotiate a contract, but I still think because of the money the Eagles paid him already, I think they're still on the hook for that dead cap space. So it's interesting to see if they can somehow pull this off. But one way or the other, I mean, I personally would say, you come back, new offensive coordinator. We got to do what's best for the team. But if anybody can work their magic, it would be Howie. All right, good win for the Sixers yesterday, 113-104 over the Pacers. Probably should have been a larger margin, but solid win for them. Joe had 30. Tyrese Maxey had 29. Tyrese Maxey also named an All-Star Game starter. And shout out to VJ Edgecombe, who in his post-game interview, Tyrese Maxey's post-game interview, came up and said, for the record, we don't hate each other, because that was the big story. Them yelling at each other on the sideline about a play that happened. Personally, I liked it. I mean, they both played it off well. It happens in the heat of moment. I don't know how many times playing pickup basketball even, you argue with your friends. Why you let him get past you like that? So, but shout out to him. They're back at it again tonight against the Suns. Likely will not see Joe as it is a back-to-back. Paul George did not play yesterday, so maybe we'll see PG. And maybe that's one of the ways they're going to divide it up. But we'll see what happens. But Sixers beating the Pacers 113-104. To the ice, late night hockey out in Vegas. And the Flyers win a game. Flyers win a game against a good team. Travis Konechny scored both goals for the Flyers, who snapped their 6-game losing streak. Vegas, to their credit, came in on a 7-game winning streak. So good win for the Flyers as they get off the schneid. Hopefully they can keep that momentum rolling tomorrow night in Utah. And the Union, yes, we're talking Union already. They open up their preseason today down in Clearwater. They have some friendlies with some clubs from Spain. So looking forward to getting soccer back in action. And then yesterday's trivia question, we talked about the Vet. I said, what was the Eagles' playoff record at the Vet? That would be 7-4. The Eagles had a pretty good record at the Vet for the postseason, minus the Buddy Ryan days and the debacle that was the Tampa Bay that we talked about. But thank you to everybody who reached out and gave their guesses for that. Some quick housekeeping. Be sure to follow me on all social media platforms at Philly Jimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel Jimbo_Mont, and continue to spread the word as we grow this thing. And of course, the Brotherly Birds breakdown, we did our season ending. That episode is available wherever you get your podcasts as well as on YouTube. We will be back in a couple weeks for a Super Bowl edition. And then, of course, go to Philly Goat. Philly Goat has you covered for all of your Philly sports apparel needs. They even have a new option that allows you to design your own shirts. Go to phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order.
Hey guys, guess what time it is? It's cookie season. I'm Ella here, your favorite Girl Scout, and we have your oldies but goodies. Lemonades, Dimmits, peanut butter sandwiches, and more. This year we have a new cookie flavor called the Explore Mug. My goal is 200 boxes, so please make that happen. You're going to buy cookies anyway, so why not buy them from me?
All right, January 20th, and it's a relatively light day in Philly sports history. But first, we're going to go back to 1967. Sixers beat the Lakers 119-108 at Convention Hall to move to 45-4. It was their 8th straight win. Wilt Chamberlain messed around, almost had a triple-double. He was 1 assist shy, had 32 points, 30 rebounds, and those 9 assists. Hal Greer added 26, but the story was Wilt. His 32 came on 15 of 15 shooting. He went 2 for 6 at the free throw line, but the 15 for 15 shooting set an NBA record for most field goals in an NBA game without a miss. He beat that number 2 more times during the 1967 season, including one where he had 16, one where he had 18. All 3 are the top in NBA history for most field goals without a miss in a game. For those keeping score at home, the modern record is set by Thomas Bryant, who had 14 in 2018 without a miss. All right, fast forward to 1983. Flyers beat the Flames 5-3 at the Spectrum. Bill Barber had 2 goals and an assist. Darryl Sittler, though, had a goal and an assist, his 30th of the year, as he went over 1,000 points for his career. He was the second player to score 1,000 points while playing for the Flyers. The first was Bobby Clark. He also was the 17th in NHL history to achieve this feat. The future Hall of Famer played 3 years in Philly. Most of those points he amassed came with the Toronto Maple Leafs. But Darryl Sittler scored his 1,000th point on this day. Second player to do it while playing for the Flyers. Not all with the Flyers, but while playing for the Flyers. Bobby Clark, all with the Flyers, though. And if you are watching the replay of this on my social media, check out the Cooperalls that the Flyers were wearing. Yes, they were wearing pants. Looks like they were wearing ski pants, which they did for a couple years in the mid-'80s until the NHL outlawed them for safety reasons. But on this day, Darryl Sittler scores his 1,000th point in the Flyers' 5-3 win at the Spectrum over the Flames. And then finally, in 2010, the number 16 Temple Owls beat Xavier in a huge A-10 matchup. Going through, I forgot I was even at this game, but going through my time hop, it showed I was actually at this game down at the Liacouras Center. Ryan Brooks scored 22 for the Owls. Lavoy Allen scored 16 points as the Owls improved to 16-3 on the year. They would end up number 12 in the final AP. I think it was the AP or the coaches poll, either way, but they got all the way up to number 12. They won the A10 tournament, got a 5 seed in the tournament before being upset by Cornell. And then finally today, turning the page, the moments that changed Philly sports forever. And I'll never forget this one because it was certainly a news dump for the Eagles as the Phillies were just getting underway for their season. But going all the way back to 2010, Easter Sunday, the Eagles traded Donovan McNabb, ending that era. He was the face of the franchise. And I think at that point, the Eagles realized the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. That was coming on the heels of them having a chance to, I believe, get the number 1 seed that year, or at least the 2 seed, but lost the final game in Dallas and then got blown out in the wild card round against the Cowboys the week later. Essentially, this started Andy's last hurrah. It led to the Michael Vick experience. He drafted Nick Foles. If you remember, Kevin Kolb was involved in this. But it turned the page on one of the franchise's great, very unceremoniously. I still think to this day that Donovan never and still doesn't get the respect that he deserved. Now, were the Eagles, and did they end up becoming better because of getting rid of Donovan? Possibly. I think with the Michael Vick led team in 2010, that was a fun team to watch. But Donovan certainly deserved better. And you could compare it to and I think Donovan got it worse, but you can compare it to what is going on with Jalen Hurts right now. Although Jalen did win a Super Bowl, you could also compare it a lot to the Joel Embiid sort of criticism that he gets. I feel as though that might be a more accurate sort of depiction. But it was time. I do think it was time to turn the page on Donovan. I just wish it would have been a little bit more better than an Easter Sunday news dump. Andy, to his credit, only had 3 years left and he would be gone. But ultimately, the trade of Donovan McNabb sort of put that into motion. Definitely put Andy on the hot seat. Had a good 2010, and then 2011, 2012 did not go so well, marking the end of the Andy Reid era. But even during this time, there was still some of the calls to have Andy's job. But Donovan McNabb being traded turned the page on Philly sports history forever. But ultimately, making that change, none of the draft picks or anything that Donovan had led to the Super Bowl in 2017, but it certainly changed the mindset of the organization. And if you look at what they've done since then, they're not afraid to turn the page on a franchise quarterback. We saw it with Carson Wentz. There's already rumblings. Would not be surprised if, depending, I don't think they're going to do it this year. I know some people are saying, oh, they're going to trade Jalen this offseason. Don't see it happening, but it really empowered, I guess, the Eagles to really think through and do ultimately what's best for the team. And that does lead to today's trivia question. The Eagles had 7 players who were drafted under Andy Reid on the Super Bowl roster in 2017. Who are they? Hit me up on the Back to the Future voice and text line 267-495-8531. Let's have some fun with this. But who are the 7 players on the Eagles roster that won the Super Bowl in 2017 that were drafted by the Eagles under Andy Reid? Get anything else Philly sports related off of your chest as well. On this day in 2010, number 16 Temple beat Xavier 77-72 down at the Liacouras Center. 1983, Flyers beat the Flames. Darryl Sittler scores his 1,000th career point. And in 1967, Wilt Chamberlain goes 15 for 15 from the field, setting an NBA record for most field goals without a miss in a game, a record he would beat twice during that 1966-67 season. We will have more on the Eagles OC search as they try to move on and put together the 2026 team. We'll have more on the Sixers as they play the Suns. Big game tonight down at the X. Flyers, though, with the win. Union preseason kicks off. Not that long before pitchers and catchers. Not that we're excited about the Phillies, but it is what it is. Remember, your actions are your values made real. You can talk the talk, but at the end of the day, your actions never lie. So make sure everything you do is in alignment. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for January 20th, 2026. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Tuesday. Stay warm. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.